Well, hi there, guys. Happy Thursday. My name is Lauren, and I am here to talk to you about something I call leadership isolation syndrome. Did you even know that that was a thing? You probably have felt it. You have probably felt frustrated by it. You've probably grieved it, this phenomenon, but I wonder if you know that it has a name: leadership isolation syndrome. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be telling you about why, if you don't know what it is, you need to know what it is, and how to guard against it. And so I can't wait to do that. And then also just wait till the very end, because I have got some very exciting news to share with you in case you missed it. But if you're here watching the replay, welcome. If you're here watching live, welcome. Why don't you go ahead and say hi in the comments? Hit those little heart buttons. Let me know that you're here so that I can say hi back. And if you're watching the replay, why don't you hashtag replay and tell me how you are doing today? So a little bit earlier today, in the Facebook community that I moderate and admin, it's called Support and Solutions for Heart-Centered Women, I polled the women in the group and I asked them about their relationship with isolation and loneliness. And overwhelmingly, the women were like, I am 1,000% down to be there for people who need me, but I struggle to allow people to be there for me. I really struggle. And you guys, that description, that kind of like, hey, me too, moment that we had in that community today, or in this community, because I know this video is going out to that community too, that sentiment is basically the definition of leadership isolation syndrome. Leadership isolation syndrome is when you are in a position of leadership, authority, or when you are walking 2, 3, 5, 10 steps ahead of other people, when they are looking to you for support and encouragement, when they look up to you for wisdom and advice. And that basically puts you in a position of influence over people, right? Which is leadership. So leadership can be any of those things. Leadership isolation syndrome is when, as the leader, you have no support. Whereas the leader, you have anything from 1 to thousands of people connected to you and connecting to you for support, but you have no connections for you to receive support. That's leadership isolation syndrome. And you guys, it can be so destructive. And so if you're here watching this, why don't you pop some hearts if you can relate to anything that I just described? And in the comments, why don't you let me know if you can relate? Why don't you share your experience? I have got my phone over here, and so I'm going to hop on over to see what you guys are saying, and we can start a conversation about leadership isolation syndrome. Here's what I want you to know about it, okay? Let's see if it'll come up. It's normal, mean that this is common way for us to respond to being in a position of influence or leadership over people. But what you also need to know is that it's not healthy. I suffered a really severe case of leadership isolation syndrome during my time in Christian ministry in local church leadership, which feels like eons ago, but it was really 6 or 7 years ago. And here's why it was so dangerous to me and why it was so dangerous to my colleagues. This right here on the screen. It says there, let's see if my finger can touch it. It's normal. Because it's normal, we think it's healthy, or we think that that is just how life is. We accept it and we don't even attempt to do anything about it. It is normal, but it's absolutely not healthy. You, as a human being, right? You were wired for connection. What does that mean? Because we hear it being said a lot. That means that you were biologically programmed, physiologically programmed even, to need human connection to survive. Note that I did not say flourish, although it is true. I did not say to excel in all areas of life, although this is true. But did you know that human connection is one of your basic human needs for survival, let alone flourishing? And so what happens is we get to a position of influence, we get to a position of leadership in the lives of other people, even in our families, you guys. And then we get disconnected. And then what happens is we are left with the feelings of responsibility, of caring for, of leading, of being a healthy, positive influence over the lives of others. But we are cutting off our own life supply from other people in terms of human connection. It's not healthy. It is absolutely not healthy. And what we do by falling into the trap of thinking that leadership isolation syndrome is inevitable is that we sabotage our ability to lead successfully and sustainably by staying disconnected. Unfortunately, this is the truth now. And in my experience, and so this might not be true for everyone, but one of the biggest, and there were a lot of threats to the sustainability and to the healthy leadership, of my healthy leadership when I was working in full-time ministry. One of the biggest ones was isolation and loneliness. Why? I can't talk to anyone. No one will understand. I'm not allowed to talk to anyone. I'm not allowed to have problems. I'm not allowed to feel things like this. I'm not allowed to struggle. My needs don't matter. All becomes stories that we start to tell ourselves. And then what happens is the very, 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 very thing that we need to flourish, we basically shut off, close the door, shut down access to, which is human connection and having other people there for us. The other thing that I wanted to let you know, and this is what changed my life. And so I went through a season where this was probably within the first 3 years of my full-time ministry journey, feeling desperately lonely, desperately lonely and isolated. And I remember approaching someone saying like, hey, and this person was in a position of authority over me. And I went to them and I said, I'm lonely. I need help. I need friends. I need support. And they said to me, this is the life that you've chosen by choosing to be in ministry. And then he proceeded to take scriptures completely out of context, and show me how I needed to embrace and accept and just get over the fact that I was going to be alone and lonely for the rest of my life and isolated. And so I decided, okay, I'm not so sure about this. And so I went back to scripture and I started examining the lives of the early church fathers and leaders in the epistles, which is the New Testament, the letters that Paul and some of his colleagues like James and Peter were writing. And this is what I learned about loneliness and isolation, that it's completely unbiblical. Aside from the model of the church, which is literally described as the most when we describe the church as a body, and if you know anything about your body, you know that it is so intricately and intimately connected to itself and to all the parts of itself. And if that is how we describe community, that is the standard set for us in community, then that is one thing. But then I examined the lives of these church fathers, and then I started to see that these people were far lonely. Every single letter in the Bible starts off with greetings, not just to a random group of people, but to specific individuals that the author knew personally, and quite frankly, I could tell loved a lot. Every single epistle ends, or most of them end, with greetings, salutations, blessings upon blessings upon blessings to people mentioned by name. And I looked at this and I thought, wow, these people were not lonely. Did they have a lot on their plate? Absolutely. Did they have a lot of responsibilities? Absolutely. Were there a lot of people depending on them? Were there a lot of people looking up to them and following in their footsteps? Absolutely. But were they lonely? No. Were they isolated from other people? Absolutely not. Leadership isolation syndrome is unbiblical, and it's certainly not inevitable. We need to make choices. We need to make choices that are our highest choices, and we need to make choices that are in line with the truth. We need to examine what we believe about ourselves. And so here's what I started to realize when I was kind of doing this work for myself was, at the root or at the heart of my leadership isolation syndrome was the belief that I was not allowed to have needs and that my needs were burdensome to other people. This is a belief or baggage that I had kind of carried around with me since childhood. And when I came into a position of influence within the life of our church and in leadership, that belief morphed and it became camouflaged in, oh, well, leaders don't need friends, or leaders can't burden other people with their problems. And I started to kind of holy it up a little bit, but it was still completely unbiblical. And so what I realized is that what needed to be addressed were these beliefs and change them and start to accept the truth that I am human. And one of my human needs is human connection. I am not above that. That being in leadership, that does not suddenly elevate me beyond the point where I suddenly no longer have this biological need for friendship, and I suddenly no longer have this biological need for intimacy, that I suddenly no longer have this biological need to be seen fully and to be loved fully for who I am. And you guys, you know what I realized is that, okay, so I had not dealt with a lot of my, childhood baggage and pain at that point. And what I realized is that I would often gravitate towards positions of leadership because in the leadership culture I was a part of, the leadership was extremely isolating and isolated. I would gravitate towards those roles so that I wouldn't have to address issues. And so here's the deal, you guys. In an attempt to live fully the life that I believe that God has called us to, a life that is beautiful, flourishing, teeming with life and connection, a life that mirrors or embodies or is a light shining in the darkness as to what God originally intended for us and what he promises his people, a life that is characterized by deep, holy connection with God, but also deep, intimate, life-giving connection with other people. And that intimacy requires that we be seen for who we are, all of who we are, our needs, our struggles, our pain, all of those things as well. So what do we do about it, you guys? Sorry, I'm just looking up on my notes here. We need to make choices in line with what we believe. We need to make sure that we connect ourselves into relationships, and we need to not just hope to find relationships that can be life-giving and sustaining to us, and where we can give life and sustain others. But we need to work at forging them. Our pastor says something so amazing to us often as a church. He says that relationships or community is not found, it's forged. And I think a lot of us are sitting around feeling very sorry for ourselves, waiting for the right relationships or for the right community to find us. And friend, this is your intervention. Stop waiting to be found. Stop waiting to find the perfect people for you. You need to forge those relationships. You need to take responsibility for yourself. You need to take responsibility for your flourishing. You need to take responsibility for your life. You need to take responsibility for your calling and the sustainability of your calling. And you need to forge relationships that will nourish you and in which you can nourish other people as equals. Seriously. And so maybe there will be a time where we can do more teaching on how do we do that? How do we forge relationships? How do we hang in there for the long haul? How do we get over the fact that, how do we get over the comfort of isolation? Because for some of us, that's all we know is isolation. And that's definitely a struggle that I've struggled with. By the grace of God, I feel like I'm kind of like clawing my way through, I guess. But yeah, we need to forge them. We need to take responsibility. We need to invest in the sustainability of our callings and the work we are called to do in the world. And we need to make sure that we invest in forging those relationships because we need them. And so just like you would need to take responsibility for your sleep cycles, just like you would need to we should take responsibility for how we move our bodies, how much water we drink, and other ways in which we take care of our physical bodies. Taking care of ourselves and our relationships is equally important. And so, by the way, before I go, I wanted to tell you guys or just remind you about the Mompreneur Mentorship Program. It is a 6-week long program focused on helping you as a woman, a mother, as someone who is invested in making a difference in the world, in her home and or beyond it, but who's also feeling overwhelmed, who's also feeling not good enough, who's feeling like there is no way that she can take another step forward because she feels like she is drowning in overwhelm. If you need to come up for air, if you are sick and tired of treading water, then that program is for you. And I get asked a lot about what the difference is between the Mompreneurship program and the Get Stuck, Stay Unstuck coaching program. The Get Stuck, Stay Unstuck coaching program is a month-to-month commitment and investment. And so it is a monthly investment, and then you get to attend weekly coaching calls, group coaching calls. And we have monthly strategic planning calls where we get on Zoom and we strategically plan the month ahead. We prioritize for the month ahead because that's a great weapon and It's a great tool against overwhelm. And then we also do social media scheduling calls once a month so that stuff just gets done, right? And how that would be different to the Mompreneur Mentorship Program would be that this is short term. It's 6 weeks. And it's focused on getting you on dry ground, taking a breath, coming up for air, so that you can go on and do the things that you need to do moving forward. And so a lot of the times we get overwhelmed and we have no idea what to do and we're struggling. And this would be a great program for that. And it's 6 weeks versus a month-to-month commitment that you can change. And the great news about the Mompreneur Mentorship Program is that although the first cohort is full, I have decided to open up a second cohort. And so the starting point for that cohort will be next week. And so you've got a week to get yourself organized. You've got a week to get yourself slotted in. If making the payments is an issue, and I've had a number of people reach out to me on this, and this is why I've decided to do that. We're extending the payment deadline, and I've created 3 different payment plan options. And so honestly, you guys, if timing is an issue, if cost is an issue, then I'm really, really committed to helping you work through those obstacles if you need this program. And so if you want to join the Mompreneur Mentorship Program, please go ahead and type in the comments, I'd like more information about the program, and I'll get back to you. If you're interested in the group coaching, the Get Unstuck, Stay Unstuck group coaching, I believe there is a link to that program on my website, which is in the description of this video. And yeah, just great opportunities to forge community. Great opportunities to invest in the part of yourself that needs connection and intimacy, that needs support. Don't wait until it's too late. Just like any other area of your health, you need to make sure that you stay ahead of leadership isolation syndrome. And the second you start to feel like you don't have permission to have needs, that you don't have anyone to talk to about the struggles that you're going through, that you don't feel like you have a safe space to ask questions or to process the things that you're going through so that you can show up strong and healthy for the people around you. If that's you, then leadership isolation syndrome might be coming. It might be becoming an issue. As always, I'm happy to chat to anyone about pretty much anything. And so feel free to slide into my DMs. Feel free to join the Facebook group that I created and moderate. And feel free to comment below with your experiences. I love starting conversations. And so if anything I said resonates with you, pop it into the comments so that the people reading this and watching this get to have, oh, me too moments. And this, just by commenting or participating in the conversation on this video, you are taking a knock at your own leadership isolation syndrome, as well as the leadership isolation syndrome of other people. All right, you guys, I am out of here. I hope that you have a fantastic day. Stay connected and let's flourish together. Have a good one. Bye.